right. Well, hello, Lori. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to have you here. And we are, we just chatted a little bit about our experience on Zoom. We're becoming professional Zoomers here in this COVID-19 pandemic era.
Yes, we did. We're getting used to Zoom really quickly.
Yes, we are. And I'm so thankful because I know that you're being pulled in 100 different directions, not only creating webinars as, you know, as an instructor and an educational guide through your aesthetic immersion courses, but also as a leader in our industry, as an expert injector with other manufacturers, and then also as a student and always, you know, somebody who's always looking to learn and grow and innovate yourself. So I'm sure you've been glued to your computer. So I feel especially honored to have the chance to interview you today. And thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Kaeli. I highly respect you as an educator and sharing what you know business-wise in this industry. I learned from you and your conferences. So thank you for inviting me. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. So I have to admit, now I gave a little bit of a bio about you, and I want to tell, if you're okay, a little bit of a story about how I met you and got to really know you, and then I want you to kind of extrapolate on, you know, who you are, and I want to kind of peel back some of the layers of the onion into digging down into who, you know, what Lori's all about. But
oh my gosh, it goes kind of deep. So I don't know how much you want to peel the onion.
No, it's so amazing. You know, so I have to just tell the story so everybody can hear. Well, it was a few years ago. I don't know, maybe 4 or 6 years ago, probably, or more. And we were at an aesthetic conference in Vegas, and I was a sales manager at the time. And I asked my team, because I was going to be there at the meeting as a regional director, your Western US, bring in our top customers. We're going to do this nice big dinner. It was at the Wynn with that beautiful steakhouse down there. We had this big dinner, and Lori Robertson, who I knew of, and, you know, I'm more of the sales manager looking at numbers and, you know, how are we doing on volume? And so a lot of the names I knew and of the people that I had seen, and obviously seeing you speak on stage and all that kind of, you know, knew of you. And you were sitting at the dinner table, and it was your birthday, I think. And so we were kind of celebrating your birthday too. And you just have this magnetism, and you're so beautiful and attractive to be around, you know, because you're just like so warm. And I somehow got seated, you know, maybe 2 seats from you and your husband, and you were talking about someone just asking questions, and it was just about your experience, and you were talking about your time as a race car driver. Just like underwater rescue, and
there are 2 layers of the onion.
and, being a General Hospital as an actress. And I thought, this woman is supernatural. And I was so impressed, not just that you had done all those things, because, you know, many of us are like, we've been waitresses and, you know, had other jobs, but like you have done things that are like bucket list things that people aspired to do just one time in their life, and not only just like going down one path and then achieving one goal and then the next and then the next, but like so many different things that just show how dynamic you are as a person. And I thought, there is something really special about the spirit of this woman, and I have to get to know her better. And then of course, you know, you have just a reputation of absolute gold in our industry, as not just a provider, but as a human being. And I've seen that firsthand as you came and were so gracious to support and speak at my PopCon conference, our first business accelerator course this year. And we've gotten to know each other a little better through that. But so I hear all these stories in Vegas, and I want you to tell, though, really about all of this, because I want to like behind like this super woman, you know, like tell our listeners, if you don't mind, a little bit about some of those like big things, and about you, and like how did you go through those different phases of your life and you know, bring you to who you are today.
It's, you know, I think it's kind of I tell my daughter this. I spoke at her sorority once, and because she was talking about my mom rocks, blah blah blah, and I said, you know, I told them, I said, it's not that I'm special than anybody else. I just have had opportunities come into my life. And you have a choice when opportunities come into your life to say, no, I don't want to do that. I might fail. I don't want to do that. Or you go, what the heck? Let me try it. So I think I've done what I've done because I've gone, well, you know what? It's an opportunity. It sounds interesting. Could be scary, not scary, whatever. I'm going to give it a go, because if you don't get it, where are you? You're back where you were anyway, and you haven't lost anything, right? So if you end up doing, some things, you might succeed, and then you have this life experience. You're like, wow, that's so cool. That's so cool that I did that. It started back, what did I do first? Sheriff's Department. So back in the 80s, 83 or so, my brother and I were chatting. I was an ICU nurse and he was an ER nurse at the time. And he said, hey, sis, what do you think about going through the Sheriff's Academy? And I'm like, sure.
Like that.
Because we were talking about mountain rescue. We're like, it'd be kind of fun to work in the helicopters and do stuff like that. So we kind of started researching it and found out that as nurses, we could go through with the LA County Sheriff's Department, a specialist academy, and we could go on as a specialist. So we'd skip the jails, and we could go on as a specialist onto certain details. And he and I both wanted to do mountain rescue because we could take our nursing experience and our medical knowledge on the hillside. So we ended up going through the Sheriff's Academy together in LA County. We both went on to the same mountain rescue team at the same time. And I did the mountain rescue for about 3 years. So did a lot of rappelling from helicopters, rappelling down mountainsides. It was an eye-opener to me because I was very used to working in an ICU. I get the patients when they're bundled up, they've had surgery, they come up to me, they got their IVs or they're unconscious, whatever it is, and I'm taking care of them, right? So that's where I came from. Seeing people, it was like PTSD. I would come up on a car over a cliff. I'd rappel down and find the body of this beautiful 18-year-old that was thrown out of the car when it rolled down the hill, and be standing there going, oh my God, she was alive an hour ago and healthy. And I was so used to dealing with sick people or surgicals, severe surgeries, just critical things, that it made trauma such a reality for me. Right. And it was, I would come up and on a body that was dumped over a cliff, and I'd have to go get the body, and it had a gunshot in the back of its head, and the person's hands were duct tied together, and it was a murder scene. And so they would always send me down with the coroner because the bodies usually smelled after a week. So of course, Lori, the nurse, had to go rappel down with the coroner to go get these bodies. And it just made, I don't listen to the news the same anymore. It makes the news real for me. We are so desensitized that this person was killed, 2 people were shot, these cars hit, and a family of 4 was killed. And you're like, yeah, you hear it. You're making dinner and you hear it and you go on. But when you are standing there over this healthy 18-year-old that just died being thrown out of a car because she didn't have her seatbelt on, or this 22-year-old with a bullet in the back of his head because a drug deal went wrong, and you're like, who could do this to somebody? Who could do this to somebody? It makes news real. And I still can picture those in my mind. I can picture all of this in my mind. So that was a real learning experience as far as a first responder. I now have all of the empathy in the world for our police and our paramedics who are first responders on a scene. I just got a glimpse through the few years that I did that. But these people that do this day in, day out, I have all the respect in the world for them, because I know that it affects you as a person, and you try to build a wall up, and it's hard sometimes. But
I have a girlfriend who went through the police academy. She went, it's a lot of work. It's very hard work. And
yeah.
She was a cheerleader. She's a tiny little itty bitty thing. And she passed and got through, and, was one of her first days, like, on her real job. And she had to go be exposed to a dead body. And that was it for her. And she's now in commercial real estate. Like, she couldn't even, was not. But also, I bet, just being able to really relate to or feel like realize how fleeting life is, really, just how it's there and then gone, right? Like
you know what? It does. And there's this poem that I absolutely love. It's called The Dash.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about this at my dad's funeral services and my best friend's mom's funeral services. And what it basically boils down to is, on our gravestone, there's a date of our birth and a date of our death.
Mm-hmm.
And in between that is a dash. And the only thing that means anything is that dash. That is our legacy. That's our legacy. So whatever we do in the lives that we touch in that dash, I have chills. That means everything. So it brings that into, it's short. We never know what's going to happen to us. We never know. So we need to have our ducks in a row and be right with our creator, because we never know. We could walk outside and a rock could fall on our head. I don't know, so it's so important that we cherish each day. It really is. And me, seeing these things firsthand, it just makes things,
I mean, it certainly sheds a different perspective on, all of us who feel uncertain about, gosh, like what's going to happen to our businesses, or what's going to happen, with this pandemic and, our livelihood, or, like, when am I going to get to go and eat out at my favorite restaurant? It's like,
one thing that I learned in grad school was it was a stress management class. It's one of those upper division throwaway classes. You're like, oh, what should I take? I'll take stress management. It's one of the best classes I ever took. And it was a joke for me, but there were so many things I learned in that class. And one of them was, you can't worry about things you can't change. It's wasted energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if I worry about, oh my God, is my business going to flounder? Am I going to survive? Am I going to get sick? I can't change those things.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. So it's so much wasted energy and anxiety over the unknown, or things that I can't change. Worry about stuff you can change. Do something about something you can change.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't worry about things that are out of your control, that are totally out of your control. You can't control other people. You can't control what other people do. You can control yourself.
Right.
So, it put things in perspective, and it helps me, release a lot of anxiety. People that have anxiety they don't have the ability to kind of relinquish that, that worry about things that they worry about, things they can't control.
So how did you go from then you're doing mountain rescue, and, were you turned off by that, or, how, how did things kind of lead from there? And I want to hear about too, becoming an actress in general.
Okay. So that's next. The actress is next. So what happened was, one of my friends who I went to college with at Pepperdine called me and said, hey, Lori, MGM is looking for a nurse to play a role on a new TV show. I said, oh no, are you kidding me? No, I'm not an actress, because I'm not an actress. And I ended up, she talked me into it. I went, and she was with a company that, they do actors and actresses. Gosh
like
darn.
Production, or
the company's agency. So she was with an agency that did a lot of, put people on camera. So I went and interviewed, and I auditioned, and they called me back for a second audition. Then I got the role. So really, it was more real life. And that show lasted one season, and then it closed down. But the director who directed that show also directed part-time at General Hospital. He said, hey, Lori, come over to General Hospital. We can put you on the show at General Hospital. I'm like, oh, cool, great. I'm already union. It's great. So I went over there, and this is probably in 89, maybe 1989. And I had already watched General Hospital in Pepperdine, because a baseball team got me hooked on it. Every day, like they would stop playing baseball and watch General Hospital. The whole these are guys. Yeah. So I already knew the history of the show. So I knew the actors and actresses. I knew who were doctors and nurses. It was great. So I interviewed, and the executive producer at the time said, you know what? We're looking at your medical information here, being an ICU nurse, and we're looking at this, and you know what? We really could use a new medical consultant. And I said, you know what, I didn't even know you had a medical consultant. And they said, no, but we could put you on camera too as an extra or whatever. But if we put you on as a regular actor or actress, we could just kill you off. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to be killed off. I'm all good. I can help you do this right. So, so I ended up coming on board as their medical advisor. And I learned very quickly that everything wasn't my call. I could tell them what was real, but everybody there, the writers and the directors, had this little license in their back pocket, creative license. And they kind of would overstep me sometimes. Somebody break their neck, they're paralyzed, and the next day they could walk again. So there were a lot of times when I said, just take my name off the credits. I don't. So I finally would say if they just had to have something that was way out in left field, because I feel very responsible for making sure things are as correct as I can get them, no matter what. It's a soap opera. And I would just say, okay, if you want a drug that's going to cure people, make it an M92, whatever. A drug that is no drug, it's nothing, it's fake. We're just fake the whole thing, and I'm okay with that. So we did that with some storylines, but other storylines, we did the HIV storyline. We did a heart transplant, pediatric heart transplant storyline, breast cancer storyline, things that I was very proud of that got a lot of good, valid information out to people. So I would get all the scripts every week. I would read them. I would rewrite the medical dialogue. I would talk to the writers about long-term and short-term storyline goals, give them ideas. They're like, hey, we need somebody we had a new show coming out, Port Charles, which was a spinoff of General Hospital. And they said, we need someone to have an injury. They're going to be an area like a abandoned shed kind of place. We need someone to have an injury where we think they're going to die and there's no medical supplies, but somebody can save their life and then they're going to live. I'm like, oh my gosh, so I was, okay, we'll take a hammer, hit her in the head, take a drill out the epidural hematoma, she'll live, so I felt like MacGyver of medicine. So we did
reverse engineering, basically.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, what tools do I have and what can we do in the situation we're in?
Oh my goodness.
They had me do a lot of that stuff for long-term storyline development. And then I would, the scenes that I was going to be there, or the medical scenes, I would order all of the props, make sure they had the IVs and the tubings and the ventilators and things like that. And then I would be on the set when we taped those scenes. And keep in mind, a soap opera, we tape 80 to 90 pages of dialogue a day. 80 to 90. These actors and actresses are the hardest working actors and actresses I've ever seen in my life. They have to memorize so much dialogue. Now, to put that in perspective, when somebody's doing a film, they will film a half, maybe 1 page a day.
Wow.
Maybe.
And they go every single day too. So it's like
Monday through Friday.
It's not like you can spend a week memorizing for the day.
No, it's every day. Mm-hmm. So then I was on the set. I always played a nurse in the ER, OR, ICU. And when they couldn't say the words I would write, I'd kind of help them along. So sometimes they'd give me lines to say, sometimes not. And sometimes I would just say stuff because we would be doing CPR and they're like, okay, let's defibrillate at 250 watt seconds, doctor. Oh yes. So let's defibrillate at 250 watt seconds. So they would forget the dialogue sometimes because it's not their shtick. That was fun. I did that for about 19 and a half years until I became a nurse practitioner and worked so much that I couldn't get on the set anymore. So I had to give that up, and then racing came in after that.
Wow, that I think that was the most interesting conversation for me, was that because you're just this like beautiful petite little thing, and then someone brought up something about a car, and there's Lori at the dinner like, oh well, this speed and that accelerator and these types of tires and like the engines and all of that, and I'm like, who is this person?
Well, it's another thing. It's another thing where this was here. Remember how I talk about opportunities?
Yeah.
So General Hospital was another opportunity. Like, hey, do you want to work? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I had nothing to lose. If they said no, we don't like you, I'm still working in ER. I was working in ER anyway, or ICU. So with the auto thing, my husband was invited to go race cars with a friend of ours, and I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, I think about that. And no, I had about a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time. So our husband was racing these older Corvettes with a friend of ours. And I go, what are you doing? Here I am, a trauma nurse. So I equate skidding of tires with, tire skid, crushed metal, trauma. That's how it goes, right? You skid tires, it's trauma, and I get them in the ER. So when he said he's going racing, I go, are you crazy? Is this your second childhood? You could kill yourself. We have small children. Nag, 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 nag.
Right.
So what did he do? What did my dear husband do? He signed me up for a racing school.
That's how I ended up playing golf. Yeah.
Right? So I didn't want to go. I'm like, no, I don't want to race. I had a Volvo at the time. I go, I don't want to race. He's like, well, you'll lose the money. I paid the money already. I go, okay, fine. I'll go do one lap and I'm leaving. So after about 20 laps with smoke coming out of the front wheel wells of my car, I said, okay, honey, you try to beat my time. And if you don't beat it, you owe me a lobster dinner, because I was hooked. And he didn't beat my time. So from then on, whenever I beat him, he had to buy me a lobster dinner. So we went and bought a Corvette after that and raced Corvettes for probably 10 years. And I won 4 national championships in Corvettes in the following 10 years. It just kind of clicked with me and I really enjoyed it. And I found that it was a positive stressor. Okay. It was one of those things that I couldn't think about anything else when I was driving that car. You're thinking about where you're going. You don't even, it's just reflex, a lot of reflex.
Well, and I can imagine adrenaline.
Yeah.
And now you have a positive frame of reference for cars versus, racing versus like that belief that you're going to end up being.
Yeah. Because I realized that if you learn certain ways to drive, you can get into a slide and get yourself out of it very easily without overcorrecting. And most accidents happen when people overcorrect and they get into a fishtail and they overcorrect and then they lose control. So it taught me how to feel a car. In fact, it has probably saved my life at least 2 times on the freeway when things have been in my lane and I just went around them like they were a cone and didn't think twice about it. Or if I would have hit it, probably would have really hurt me or hurt the people who were in my car. So it's changed all of my reflexes with driving.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
So then race car driver. Okay. So now you're on stage in front of thousands of people at aesthetic conferences teaching how to be nursing directors.
I just call it Cinderella. It's the Cinderella effect. I don't know.
Yeah. So how did then, tell me a little bit about your transition into aesthetics.
I got my master's in nursing in 2004, worked in family practice for a few years, and then went with a friend to go get Buddy Botox. And it was from Dr. Kwok, who's actually my partner now. Yeah. So that was the first time I had gotten Buddy Botox. And I looked around. I'd worked in family practice. Okay. So I had a few years of, not having a lot of time with my patients, having to get them in, get them out. You're at the beck and call of the HMOs. I would want an MRI of a patient and I'd have to submit it to, I call it the committee of high school seniors to make a decision if my patient gets an MRI or not. Drove me nuts. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't sick of it. I loved it, but that was a frustrating component of family practice. So when I sat there in the office, in the aesthetic office, and I looked around and I said, wow, there's nice music. It's calm. There's plenty of time to chit chat with patients. This is nice. This is nice. So I started on my own going to some lectures, some laser lectures and some aesthetic lectures, just to kind of see what it was all about. And I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. I think I might like this. So I went back to him and said, you know what? I want to do aesthetics. Do you hire? And he said, yeah. He goes, yeah, we'll hire you. I said, really? So they trained me. I went to the Whittier Clinic and the PA there was pregnant. So she had to go on maternity leave. So she trained me, but I only had 3 months of 2 days a week because I was still working family practice to learn aesthetics. And then she went out on a pregnancy issue. So I was kind of stuck all by myself with 2 days a week of 3 months of training doing lasers and injectables. So I hit the books. I went to conferences. I did everything I could to learn everything I could so I could be safe. Right. And I think I've just done that ever since. It's become, I think I found my passion, my medical passion. I didn't know I didn't have it before, but I really enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I feel so blessed to be able to spend so much time with my patients and get to know them, because I never could the 24 years prior in ER, OR, and ICU, ICU, ER, and family practice. So I couldn't spend that much time with them. So I feel like every day is a blessing to just hang out with my patients. And I intentionally make my appointments longer so I can sit there and just listen to them.
Yes. And you have the relationship with them and you can build rapport. I know that when I was interviewing you before PopCon, I asked, tell me a little bit about your value system behind both it from the clinical standpoint and also as you're running your business. And you said, right, it rolled off your tongue without even a thought, ethics and safety. And that's everything. And you stand behind that. And I think back to you're telling your story about how you started. And I work with clients who I hear literally daily, Lori, they have apprehension about bringing, a lot of times they're physicians who are not sure how to hire a nurse injector because they don't know whether they have the right training or skill sets, because the barrier to entry seems awfully low. I mean, from, peripheral standpoint, like to become a nurse injector. So tell me a little bit about how, flash forward to today, being the owner of an aesthetic practice, and a leader really in our space and an educator, what do you still stand, you stand behind safety and ethics, and how do you one, implement those and roll, and as you're teaching and training through your clinic and your aesthetic immersion school, but also how would you advise physicians who are looking to bring on injectors to what are the right things to ask to know that they're hiring injectors who are qualified from a skill standpoint, but that also live by that same value system?
That is the hardest. That's the $1 million question. That's tough. My one word that I live and breathe by is being patient centric. Mm-hmm. If I am focused on that patient, then I'm going to be doing the right thing. If I'm focused on money, it's a whole different blurred ethical line there. Mm-hmm. And I don't choose to cross that. I'm really happy I have my own clinic, because then I can make sure that my practitioners are patient centric. They're never commissioned. I don't do commission because I don't want to skew their moral. I don't want to blur their moral lines by thinking if I put one more syringe in, or if I sell them this huge package that they might not need, I'll get more money. It pulls them too easily in a direction I don't want them to go to. So I'll reinforce them in other ways. So I want them to feel valued, but that commission for sales or product, it's illegal, number one. And I don't believe in that. I think that we need to, as owners, need to make our staff feel valued and appreciated in other ways, and find out what makes that person tick. When we're interviewing somebody, I recently was interviewing for another nurse. I got so busy that I needed another nurse, but I want somebody experienced, at least 5 years of experience, so that she could be on, just hit the floor running, because I was so busy, and I could kind of tweak and educate as I was going along. And I was shocked, dismayed, appalled at the interviewees that came into me who had 5, 10, 15 years of experience, who even owned their own clinics, who wanted to come and work with me. They had no clue what they were doing, no clue. So I would ask questions about, what do you do in case there's an occlusion? They're like, oh, I flush it. What? You do what? I flush it. I put the needle in the artery and I flush it. And my interviews ended up being educational sessions. They ended up, I couldn't let someone leave and have the wrong information. So I would sit there and teach them. So I finally developed a questionnaire that the things I wanted a practitioner to know, or at least have an idea if they knew it or not, I put on a 2-page questionnaire. So when they came into my office, once they passed my practice manager's initial interview, they came into my office and they would have to answer this questionnaire without using their cell phone. And then I would get it and I would at least see what they did or what they didn't know. Do they know rheology? Do they know anatomy? Do they know facial aging? Do they know mechanism of action of neuromodulators? Just basic questions that I would assume that somebody with 5 to 10 years of experience would know. And the one nurse that could answer the majority of those is the one I hired. Now, looking back, I would probably ask more questions before I would hire somebody. I love the nurse I hired, and I'm beyond blessed to have her. I happened to be lucky and to hire somebody who was also like-minded. Mm-hmm. I didn't ask questions to make sure she was like-minded, and I think having somebody with the same core values and the same like-mindedness is imperative.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have somebody who has the same moral and ethical boundaries and values as you do, because otherwise you're going to not be able to completely trust that person. You're not going to be able to know that they are in it for the right reasons. So I think that's extremely important. I got so beyond blessed to have found somebody who is like-minded, who doesn't have an ego, who will say, I don't know that, can you teach me? So somebody who is just a sponge to learn, who wants to be the best she can be. And in turn, I tell her, you know what? Someday you're going to run this clinic. I want you to be better than me. I want you to run this clinic. I want you to know more than I know, so you get in those books and you learn. And she wants that beyond reason. So I think in that interview process, find somebody who is like-minded and has the same core values and ethics, along with whatever knowledge base you want. If you want to hire a brand new injector and teach them, it's going to be 2 years to get them up to snuff.
Right.
But sometimes people don't want to bring somebody in who has bad habits. It's hard to break bad habits.
No,
So it's a double-edged sword.
that's really what I have found, because I have this conversation on the regular basis with, and I work with practices of, they have different thought processes around, I would rather bring someone in who is experienced, that I don't have to take the time training. I really don't have the time. So this is my, opportunity to scale my business. And then other ones who really, and I probably see a bit more of this, that feel like I want someone to have the same, fit into the culture, have the same value system and the character traits that are really going to resonate with the way that I want to run my business and my patients. But I'm concerned that I'm going to spend the time to train them and then they're going to leave me. What would you say to that physician who has that fear?
That happens, and that is a fear, but I really, as a manager, as an owner, I really want my staff to know I value and appreciate them. I will always tell them, thank you. I'll tell them, you did a great job. I love how you did this. People who know that they're appreciated and valued will go an extra step for you. Mm-hmm. And we have such an amazing team at my clinic. We have a great team. I have a wonderful practice manager I wouldn't give up for the world. She owns my clinic. She runs it. It's hers. Yeah. And I love that it's hers. I empower her to make whatever decisions she needs to make. And I think empowering individuals, give them jobs. Go, you're in charge of this. You're in charge of this. I trust you with it. If there's a problem, come to me. Feel free to always ask. Keep that door open, so that if they ask a stupid question, I always tell them there is no such thing as a stupid question, only the one you didn't ask. So I want to keep that door open, and I want to make sure that they feel valued. They feel that they are very acknowledged for what they do. And I love to do little extra things for them, just, whatever, little gift cards or whatever, just things that are kind of fun. Order lunch in some days, just little things that make them feel that they're appreciated. And I think that's really important for us as owners and lead practitioners.
I love that you said, I specifically I teach something in my academy called empowerment leadership.
Good.
And you embody that. And I believe that that's why you lucked out in finding, I'm using air quotes for those of you who aren't watching this interview, because, really a great leader will set a great culture and the tone for the way that their business operates. And for those of you who are listening, guys, what Lori is saying is that it isn't just money that motivates people, that sometimes it's the little things that count. And I know you talked a lot about these types of the different types of patient profiles, and same thing with employees, right? We're all human beings and have different things that motivate us. And so a great leader is going to tap into the specific love language of that employee and feed that, right? To empower them. Okay, Lori, I have a few questions about you before we wrap up. What I want to know is like a little bit about the struggle. I'm sure, what are some of the challenges, or what would be the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome to become the nurse injector that you are today?
My biggest hurdle didn't have anything to do with aesthetics. Years ago, when I was working in family practice, I having a vast experience that I do, I'm a good practitioner. It's like I have good critical thinking skills, and I think God's blessed me with medicine, just that gut instinct. I worked very, very hard for the doctor I worked for, very hard, and caught quite a few things that maybe were missed along the way when we would share patients, like brain aneurysms and lung cancer and things. And I walked into work one day and she gave me my walking papers. And I am very, I haven't really shared this with many people, but I'm very ingrained in what I do. I dive in and my whole heart is in what I do. I was beyond crushed, beyond. I felt like my rug to my life was pulled out from underneath me because that was my life. It was her business, but I cared deeply about it. And it set me on a different path. So I worked for a family practitioner later on, but I realized, I look back now and I think, you know what, if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. If things that crushed me before, and paths that I didn't know why things happened the way they happened, I wouldn't have my own aesthetic clinic now and be having a job, air quotes. It's not a job. I love what I do. So it's really not a job. Right. I wouldn't be in a position I am now, loving what I do and enjoying my patients and having my own business, having control over how this business is run and keeping it patient-centric, keeping those ethical boundaries in line. I would still be trudging my feet, fighting with HMOs in family practice. So she did me a favor, even though I was crushed. So I always say, God, you never know what God has planned for you. Right. And things that seem horrible, sometimes it comes out on a different end, and you learn that, you use that as a learning experience. And it put me on a track to do what I'm doing now, to help me build this. And it's made me a stronger person. I've had a really bad, my last partnership with somebody was a horrible partnership. I was partnered up with a person at a different med spa that didn't understand medicine and was very narcissistic. And I learned how not to run a business. So now in this business where I'm a partner with Dr. Kwok, who's an angel, it's taught me a lot about business. So I bring that bad experience forward, and it's taught me a lot about business and how I don't want to treat people, and even more so how I do want to treat my staff. So you learn from things.
Well, I think it's valuable for people like us to see you, because a lot of people who are going to be listening to this are wanting to know, how do I become as successful as the nurse practitioner Lori Robertson, and I think that it's important to expose these things. And really, for me, what I take away is your perspective really about failure, that you don't look at these things that right? Like, you felt like a failure at the time when you were served those papers, right? But you felt your ego hurt. You felt like that wasn't the plan I had for myself, but there was a bigger plan for you. So now you can look back and see those things as they were stepping stones. They were actually
Absolutely
forward instead of backward.
Absolutely. I think everything that happens in our life, everything that happens, good or bad, gives us a foundation for going forward. Everything. So you can't ever look at something as the be all end all. There's always something ahead. So always keep your eyes forward. I always say, look ahead, look like racing. What's behind me doesn't matter. What's behind me doesn't matter. Don't look in your rearview mirror, because you're not going that way. Look forward and go, okay, well, this sucks right now, but let me look for different opportunities out of this. Let me look for a light out of this, because there's something that's going to be coming out of this experience that's going to make me stronger and better in the future.
Wow, got the chills. So speaking of looking forward, what's next for you? What are you working on now? I know you're always reinventing yourself. So what's the future for you?
Well, I've been really busy with our school. I'm so proud of the aesthetic immersion. Yes. And we started that last May. We started doing filming. It's an online access to webinars, education, thought leaders in the world will be linked. We have people linked up with us, business, anatomy, you name it. So it's a website where people can download, or not download, but watch modules and learn aesthetics and learn anatomy, learn everything the right way. And then we also offer hands-on courses in Southern California to do injectables. And it's not one of those courses that's a cattle call course, and those drive me crazy. When
Mhm.
Dr. Kwok and I and our other trainers train hands-on with our students, we are one-on-one with them for at least an hour to an hour and a half, one-on-one. We have no more than 4 students a day when we are doing injectables per trainer. So you are with us one-on-one, and we put lavalier mics on ourselves and our students. So everything we are saying, like go deeper, move this, do that, it's videotaped and it's put up in the cloud so those students can pull down their training and watch it and listen over and over again.
It's
We
like
want it to
watching
be,
film. I was an athlete. So like the best training is really just going back and seeing what you did and how you could have, done it differently from a different perspective, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So the immersive, the all-encompassing, the very detailed training is what we want people to have, because he and I are both trainers internationally, and we see so many people who have done this for years and still don't know the basics. And knowing the rheology, the anatomy, it's imperative that you know so much before you start injecting somebody.
Mhm.
So our goal is to create a very immersive, all-encompassing course where people will be safer and more adept injectors from the school. We want that to be very, very, very intricate, very, very intimate, and have people have a wonderful experience with it.
So I'll link it up in the show notes. How can people access these trainings or get involved with the aesthetic immersion?
Yeah, so go to our website. It's www.theaestheticimmersion.com.
Okay.
And you can click on webinars, you can click on different aspects of it, and it'll give you down links to purchase different webinars we've done on different subjects. There's webinar bundles. We just finished filming our entire 10-hour Foundations of Advanced Aesthetic course. That's going to be all online. So you don't have to come to California to do it anymore. It's going to be all online. And once you complete all the modules and take all the tests in that course, then we allow you to come and do the hands-on in California.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yes, I mean, our industry needs this for sure.
I think so too.
Lori, I have one last question for you. My hallmark question for my guest. We've heard so much about you. You've had such an interesting life, and I am so inspired. I know there's so many people who are going to be inspired by hearing this podcast and motivated to kind of just see these opportunities as no risk, right? But I want to ask you, we talk about the fierce factor is what this podcast is called, because I really have found that there's just a commonality between the people like you who have achieved success, and that can attribute it to really just being overcoming hurdles and being willing to feel that kind of pain that it takes to get to the next level, and doing it anyway. And I want to know from your perspective what the fierce factor means to you.
That's such a good question. That resonates with me, Kaeli. That resonates, the fierce factor. I don't think of myself as fierce, because I think I'm a little more on the shy side. Most of the, I know I don't look shy, but sometimes I'll be in the back room. But you know what? That's true. It's like you get down, you might be down and you get back up and you do it no matter what. Things might make you sad. They might feel like the rug's pulled out from underneath your feet, but you keep looking forward. And like I said, you don't look back. There's always, always more opportunities to grasp. You need to look for them. Don't ignore them. Don't say no. Start saying yes, because you have nothing to lose by trying something new. I don't care if it's school, it could be a class, it could be a new job. You know what? When you fall back, you'll be right where you were in the first place. So you haven't lost anything, but you have everything to gain and nothing to lose by trying new opportunities. And that's absolutely what I believe in.
I love that. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor. I appreciate your time, and I'm so excited to share this with the rest of the world. And everybody check out the Aesthetic Immersion. Lori, you're such a gem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kaeli. Thank you for having me.
Take care.